was a knife.
The names of the 4 University of Idaho students killed at an off-campus home over the weekend. Moscow police say 20-year-old Ethan Chapin of Conway, Washington, 21-year-old Madison Mogan of Coeur d'Alene, 20-year-old Xana Kernodle of Avondale, Arizona, and 21-year-old Kaylee Goncalves.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the
Idaho,
Transparency.
were found dead yesterday around noon local time in Moscow. Moscow
We're
police
jump
said
in
the
it.
4 found are homicide victims. The University of Idaho has
Sorry, my
canceled
allergies are
classes
acting up
today out of respect for the students.
We understand the public's frustration about not being provided a lot of information. We are working to the best of our ability to actually provide as much as possible. We intend to come out and solicit information from the public if they are within certain areas that we believe.
And he wouldn't be the only one that was out soliciting for information. As of last evening, you guys know there was a change of venue hearing. Last night, after the hearing, this was released on News Nation, and I'm going to show you guys, and then we're going to have something to say about it.
Wants it to stay. Families of the victims want it to stay. They think it should happen here. I spoke to Kaylee Goncalves' parents and brother about the reason they want it to stay, and also what it's like for them to be in that little courtroom once again, so close to the man accused of killing their kids. Take a listen.
It's hard. It gets harder for me.
Is it hard, like not to look at him, or do you try to just listen to what they're saying?
I look at him. I you know, especially when he walks in, you know, well, I'll look right at him. I'm just dying for him to look over, make eye contact.
Do you think they could find a fair jury here?
We know they can, and we've actually asked and done interviews ourselves, and they have to find 12 people.
I think you're muted.
Oh, come on in, Annie Potts. This is where I'm going to welcome my guest here. Annie Potts, come on in.
Good morning.
Good morning. You just heard that little snippet right there. I'm going to replay just that little part where we just couldn't believe kind of what was said. Let me see.
Asked and done interviews ourselves, and they have to find 12 people.
Did he say he's interviewing Moscow or Latah residents?
They can, and we've actually asked and done interviews ourselves, and they have to find 12 people plus some people on the side, you know, some substitutes. But yeah, they can find 12 people that haven't made their mind up.
Yeah, that haven't made that's not that hard.
And you know, Chris, if they
Brian,
move
did
the
he
trial
say
to
when he'll make a
Boise, it's
ruling?
about 5.5 hours away. No, he didn't say.
Okay. So right there, the Goncalveses are interviewing people themselves.
It sounds like.
What is that? How they just go knocking on doors or something?
I'm not exactly sure. I was very surprised to hear it. And the only reason that I mean, this is just my opinion. I'm no lawyer. But if the family of one of the victims is going around to residents of Latah County who they know are potential jurors, and they are attempting to interview these jurors themselves, I don't understand how that is not tampering with a potential jury pool.
Yeah, I kind of can't believe that they're out here admitting to this. I think this is going to be used by the defense here. Like, this is exactly what we're talking about. Because they couldn't do that in Boise.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of exactly why it needs to be moved, because family of one of these victims is apparently soliciting potential jurors. I'm blown away. Like, if they hired, I'm confused because it wasn't clarified. So now, if I need clarification, like, when they say we've done our own interviews, do they mean they hired their own expert survey analysis team, or are they themselves knocking on doors? I'm so confused.
I just can't believe that Shannon Gray hasn't called up News Nation and said, you need to pull that interview. It's like my guy admitting to something that, wait, this is going to start a frenzy. Well, I mean, maybe I'm the first person to come on here and talk about it because I'm just going to bring the facts. But me and Annie had a conversation this morning. Like, I was like, wait, you saw that too? I was like, yeah, I kind of can't believe it. They're talking about that they're interviewing people. And you're like, yeah, they're fucking interviewing people. Like, that's what caused all of this to be an uproar with the phone surveys by a actual hired company.
It's wild. Considering too, we've heard that in the past, Steve has had to be told by the FBI to stop like tracking down witnesses and stuff. So I don't know. It's just wild to me. I'm not a lawyer, will not claim to be one, never want to be one, but I don't understand how this would not be considered tampering with a potential jury pool.
Yeah, I don't let's see what else. Let's see what else is on here. I don't know if
we don't know how long it's going to take, but with the families, they're concerned, you know, if they move it to Boise 5.5 hours away, they've got to uproot their lives. A 3-month trial, which is it's going to be a lot for these families, you know, especially if they can't even be where they live.
Well, first of all, one thing I will say there, Brian, and I think there's only one family here that was probably planning on attending that, and that would be the Gonzalez's. The Chapin's family has not shown up to one hearing ever. The Kernodals I have not seen, and Maddie's family I have not seen. So I can't speak on that, but the Chapin family came out and said they will not be attending anything. So again,
Yeah. Brian, appreciate it. Thank you for getting that interview. Thank you for getting the information. We'll see what the ruling is, and we'll reconvene.
Where are they standing out in front of? Is that the new Memorial Garden?
Memorial Garden.
Okay.
At that time.
Yeah.
You
All
know,
right, let's
I'm
look at the
confused
legalities.
though, right? Because
Randy,
Cuomo is a lawyer. Cuomo used to be a lawyer, did he not?
Yeah. He's got,
So how are these lawyers not bringing this up? Like, you would expect some kind of question after that, you know, you hear that, where they say, yeah, no, we've gone out and done our own interviews ourselves. You would think that the lawyers hosting the show would be like, I'm so sorry, what?
I'm so sorry. What did you just say? Yeah, here, let's hear anybody that just joined us here. This is right where the part is. Here it is one more time.
It gets harder for me.
Is it hard, like not to look at him, or do you try to just listen to what they're saying? Or?
I look at him. I you know, especially when he walks in, you know, well, I'll look right at him. I'm just dying for him to look over, make eye contact.
Do you think they could find a fair jury here?
We know they can, and we've actually asked and done the interviews ourselves, and they have to find 12 people plus some people on the side, you know, some substitutes. But yeah, they can find 12 people that have made their mind up.
Yeah, that haven't made that's not that hard.
And you know, Chris, if they
Brian,
move
did
the
he
trial
say
to
when he'll make
Boise,
a
it's
ruling?
about.
And neither one of them say like, oh, wow, like they're out there interviewing people. So
For a split second, I was hoping Cuomo was going to say, Brian, did he just say what I think he said?
You know, so maybe this will get cleared up on Ashley Banfield with Shannon Gray. But basically, we just were told literally that the family was out interviewing Latah County residents to see if what resident is going to be like, oh, talking to the parents and saying, oh, yeah, I would totally be able to be impartial versus being like, yeah, I'm totally going to go in there and get justice for your kid. You know what I mean? Like they would notice who this guy is, right? I mean, we've been out there interviewing. I just can't even believe
under what
Brian Enton
though?
didn't ask him that.
That's what I mean. Like,
so have you been out there?
I don't understand why it wasn't clarified how these interviews are being conducted. By who?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Ann Taylor and her defense team doesn't have anything to say about this. if they've seen this. This is wild to me. I just can't believe that they came out and admitted this on national television in an interview, in a live interview, and that here, I can't even believe that this didn't get pulled. I wanted to come out right away and kind of stamp it, like we were talking about, like, hey, this exists.
Yeah,
and
get it on record.
Yeah,
before,
I have no idea
I
have no idea what's going on, but this cannot be, like, I have never heard of this before. I've never watched a case where somebody has come out and said, I've been interviewing people from the county that they want to have this in. Okay.
Yeah, I've never heard of the family members of a victim in a case going out and conducting their own surveys in the community for potential jurors. I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah. And so it's, I almost think that
in
this
my
would
opinion, it's for the purpose
move.
of intimidation, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, intimidation, but I think right here, this could be used to seal the deal. If the defense wanted to take this and ask for an emergency hearing to be heard, just to say, this is exactly what we're talking about, Your Honor. Literally not within even a second of us, because who knows, maybe that interview was actually before even the hearing. I don't know, was it at the end? Did they have that scheduled to talk like in between the break? You know what I mean? Was it in the morning? It seemed like to me it was afterwards, but where the sun was kind of setting down a little bit. But I just think that Ann Taylor, like, this is actually right here your proof. This proves why you need to move the trial. I'm blown away. I'm absolutely blown away.
Mm-hmm.
And, what's Shannon Gray going to do about this? This was 7:43 p.m. Central Time. So that would have been 9:43 p.m. Eastern and 6:43 p.m. Pacific when he interviewed Brian Enton.
Mm.
So, but there's way more of it. If you go on Brian Enton, you can hear like his whole little interview. It was on Dan Abrams maybe went to him or something.
You try to just listen to what they're saying.
I look at him. I especially when he walks in, I'll look right at him. I'm just dying for him to look over, make eye contact.
Do you think they could find a fair jury here?
We know they can, and we've actually asked and done interviews ourselves, and they have to find 12 people plus some people on the
done interviews themselves. And up here in the left-hand corner, you can see where it says Moscow, Idaho earlier. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, when was this? That was earlier that day, obviously. But I'm curious if it was in the middle of the break for lunch, if it was, before they ever even walked in. But I can't believe that they just admitted on national television that they have been interviewing people in Latah County. I can't even.
Yeah, I would like to hear. I would honestly like to hear a few attorneys. Honestly, I'm hoping there's a couple of lawyers that are at least going to cover whether or not this is a potential tampering issue or not. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I would really like to get the legalese behind it as to whether or not. I'd like to know. Personally,
I'm going to see if I can find the whole interview. I watched it earlier. I got to go to my my Brian Enton collection. I downloaded it.
I'm hoping
they try to get rid of it.
Yeah, I'm really hoping somebody who is an actual attorney covers the if there's an issue here. And I'd like to hear both sides. I don't want to hear from just a defense attorney. I'd like to hear from both. The arguments from both.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh wait, here it is. You might have a little something here. No, it's not enough. They just had a little recap like that. No, they're just using little clips there. I'm trying to find that whole damn interview.
Oh, do you mean the one that has the lawyer at the end?
I have that one. I want the one that just heated, like, here, maybe this is it. Okay, I think I got it. Okay, I got it. Found it. I knew it was okay. Here we go. I'm gonna show this is the actual whole thing. It was like 6 minutes.
Of course, we'd rather it stay in Latah.
Yeah.
Just out of convenience sake and out of the fact that this is where it happened, this is where it deserves to be tried.
It would be a big inconvenience for you all too. I mean,
Yeah. Idaho's a large state. You're talking another 12 hours of travel. We wouldn't be able to go home at the same day. Now you're staying overnight. And like you said, this is the community that was, this person, they victimized them, and the justice deserves to be felt local, and they have a hand in it. And that's what we believe in.
and you know this area well. You've been in court today too, listening to the defense's arguments. Do you think they could find a fair jury here?
We know they can, and we've actually asked and done interviews ourselves, and
that was the question that was asked for that. So somebody was asking, I want to know what the question was. Here's the question.
that's what we believe in.
There you go.
And you know this area well. You've been in court today too.
Right there, you know this area well. That means people know them, you know this area well.
Listening to the defense's arguments. Do you think they could find a fair jury here?
We know they can, and we've actually asked and done interviews ourselves, and they have to find 12 people plus some people on the side, some substitutes. But yeah, they can find 12 people that have made their mind up.
That's not that hard. Yeah. I just don't. Yeah, I don't see that being that hard at all.
They have one expert that says you can call the jury and they can still remain, not contaminated, not biased. And then you got another expert that says once they hear something, they never can get it out of their head. So, you can weed those people out just through the jury selection and say, hey, if you were at that vigil, let us know. And you can weed these people out. And I don't even think it's fair, but, for the sake of the case, you can get those people and remove them. Let's just say that they are some kind of bias there, but you remove those and then you just move on.
There's definitely people here, surprisingly, in this county, in this town, that I would think don't know much about it. I mean, I believe that there are some people,
Tons.
There's a lot of people that don't watch TV. They don't come into town a lot. They have farms. They kind of stick to their own. So I see it being pretty easy.
He says there's tons. Wait a second. Listen right there.
They have farms. They kind of stick to their own. So much about it. I mean, I believe that there are some people,
Tons.
There's a lot of people that don't watch TV.
There's tons. 98% of the people in Latah County know about this case. And he's saying that there's tons of people that do not know about this case in Latah County. I don't know, man. I don't know. But I feel their pain. I 100% feel their pain. But I just can't believe that they admitted to this. I cannot believe that mainstream media put this out there, because this is exactly why it needs to move. You have parents conducting interviews of the jury, potential jury pool.
They don't come into town a lot. They have farms. They kind of stick to their own. So I see it being pretty easy for them. They just got to find them.
Do you feel like your voices are being heard in terms of the prosecution and them knowing that, you would prefer it to stay?
We have made it very clear to the prosecution how important it is to us. And they have reiterated it to us that they are passing that information on to the judge, and that the judge does consider that.
Yeah, and they've shared stuff
how
like
much it weighs, we don't know.
They've shared stuff like the reason that he's not in an orange suit and in shackles is to keep this local media unbiased. They've done everything that they can possibly do to treat him as if, I call it a white collar crime.
Yeah.
But this person's killed 4 people. He should be shackled. But there was a strategy for that, and that's to keep it here and to keep people from being, prejudging. And I think that they've done a good job. And the media also helps, people understand where we stand.
A lot of people are upset though when they see that he's innocent.
Yes.
It bothers people.
For sure.
It does.
For sure.
A lot.
I mean, you've got lawyers that have been lawyers and own their own the case.
He is shackled. We have been told he is shackled at the knees, but yeah, his suit covers it. And he's always nice and clean shaven, and that's apparently part of the agreement to help in the long run, which we're here now at the long run of changing the venue. And there's also the gag order. That's all to keep everything on lock. And
otherwise, it was pointless.
Yeah,
it was completely pointless.
Yeah,
I remember seeing you all in court that first time,
pointless to let him be in.
and what that was like.
Wait, clean shaven. Brian Colbert has always been clean shaven. Like, he has the opportunity to do that. Like, what do you mean? They don't shave him for him. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say? I think that if he actually had a 5 o'clock shadow, he'd be a lot better looking. People have said that out there.
Do they think the guards are like shaving him? Is that what I don't?
Yeah, listen to this. Yeah, it's like that they're shaving him or something. I'm like, what? Wait, huh? Hold on.
Their own the case.
He is shackled. We have been told he is shackled at the knees, but yeah, his suit covers it. And he's always nice and clean shaven, and that's apparently part of the agreement to help in the long run, which we're here now at the long run of changing the venue. And there's also the gag order. That's all to keep everything on lock. And
otherwise, it was pointless.
Yeah,
it was completely pointless.
Yeah.
I remember.
Basically, he's saying it was pointless to let him be in a suit and tie if this does not stay in Latah County, that he should have been in fucking orange fucking grub.
Even if he wasn't orange scrubs, I've never seen a picture of him where he's not clean shaven and clean cut. So he would still be clean cut and clean shaven no matter what, in my opinion.
That's up to him. That's not up to the guards. That's not up to like Bill Thompson saying, shave that motherfucker. Shave him.
Right, it wouldn't be part of the agreement for change of venue that he would just be clean shaven no matter what. I think I don't understand. I'm sorry.
I think they just need to stop talking.
Same.
This needs to stop. This just needs to stop. And if Ann Taylor does not use this to her client's benefit, then I think that Ann Taylor's then she wouldn't be representing Brian Colbert to her best ability, because this is right here in front of us. This is the type of stuff that cannot be going on. The Gonsalves family just admitted to running their own interviews in Latah County, and Latah County knowing these people really well. You guys know that area well. People know you well, right? Oh, by the way, we've been interviewing. There's tons of people that don't know about this case. Well, now that you just went and interviewed them, they probably do, don't they? You know what I mean?
Now you've just spoiled the potential pool, right?
I'm just baffled. I'm baffled that News Nation is putting this out there. I'm baffled that when Shannon Gray would have seen this, he wouldn't have been like, oh my God, you just admitted to potentially tampering with the potential jury pool. That's what I would think. Because and it would by a sense of what kind of questions you were asking, wouldn't that be part well, they're not under the gag order. People think that they're under the gag order. I'm telling you, they're not under the gag order.
This is what I mean. So at least with the survey experts, both sides knew what was going on and both sides knew what questions were being asked. Everything was being asked anonymously. This was conducted by a professional survey company, whereas they seem to be just kind of willy-nilly winging it on their own, doing these interviews, which I don't understand. If they wanted to hire their own expert to maybe challenge defense experts, that would be one thing, but even that, they're not part of the prosecution team. It would be up to the prosecution team to do that, to get experts to counter defense experts. I don't understand what they're doing and why it's not being addressed legally. I just feel like it needs to be addressed legally, because this is very problematic.
And I feel like they went out and had to go to these farms, because she's talking about we have these farmers that they don't watch TV, they don't know anything. Well, how do you know that? Were you out there knocking on their door? Like, what about their wife that stays home and watches all this shit? And then the husband comes home and she's cooking him steaks and she's like, oh my God, you're never going to believe what's going on in this case. Well, you know what I mean? He's got to listen to the shit.
Right.
So
who found the farmers for them?
I just want to know. I have some questions about this. Were you going to these churches, asking people when they came out of church? Where were these, like you said, these alleged interviews being held? They said that they've interviewed people themselves. So it's like knock on their, hey, I'm Mr. Gonsalves. My daughter was murdered. I want to interview you to see if you know anything about my daughter's case. Could you, if you were a potential juror?
Right. Look, for me personally, if I was one of those people who was approached by this family to be questioned about, could you be an unbiased juror? I would immediately tell them, get off my property, and then I would report them. But that's just me.
Well, I can't believe that it wasn't kind of reported, because isn't that what happened with the whole phone surveys? It immediately got reported.
Wait, they called the cops about
No,
it.
they called the
And
prosecutor.
the
They went straight to the prosecution.
Right.
Who could just call up their district attorney and say, you know, I don't know. This is just wild. Had to go live with it. I'm shocked. I get that, but I feel for them as parents. Like I feel for any parent like this. Like, trust me, like I'm the first person that's come out here and said like the Gonsalveses can't do anything wrong in terms of how they want to grieve in terms of this. But this, hey, you did what you did. I'm not going to tell you that you couldn't, but now you understand why it got moved. You get what I'm kind of saying? Do what you do, but also then understand this is why it got moved. You know,
actions have consequences.
And
I feel for them too. Like, I know sometimes I come off as really harsh, but it's only because really, in my opinion, under the United States Constitution, the only person entitled to anything in this trial is the defendant. And I know that sounds really harsh, but it's just a really harsh fact.
It is
legally.
That's so true.
You know,
yep.
And I understand that the family, yes, grieve however you need to grieve. But at some point, when you are not only inserting yourself to the measure that you're tracking down witnesses in other states and then interviewing potential jurors on your own, those two things are counterintuitive to getting justice, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot believe that they came out here and admitted to what they just said that they did. I'm just shocked.
It's very problematic.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean, I'm sorry, but I think if we caught this, there's no way in hell that Ann Taylor's team didn't catch it. And this is boom. They gave you the example within seconds of the, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but it's and then I think Mary P says a nice comment that I liked. I thought I highlighted it. Where'd it go? Oh yeah, here we go. It's the defendant's trial, not the victims. The sentencing is for the victims. I think that's a really good way to put it. You know, like the trial is for the defendant to get a fair trial, and then the sentencing phase, if it should get to that point, is for the victims.
Well, that's what I mean. Like under the law, really, he's the only person entitled to anything that is a fair and impartial trial, no matter where it needs to go. And if that inconveniences family members or other people, so be it. If that's harsh, I'm sorry, but that's just the way it works.
Yeah. So,
but I love you. I gotta hop down.
All right, love you too, baby girl. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, Annie's on to the next. All right, guys. So welcome. The recap is very simple. Those of you guys got to see it, all the hours of it. First thing that came out the gate is there's a stipulation from both sides. So there was over 100 slides that did not get seen because the prosecution went ahead and said, hey, we stipulate those can all be in evidence. And so we didn't have to go through those slides. It was a PowerPoint. And some of us got to see it at that earlier date when they were announcing like, hey, this is who we're going to be bringing in as one of our witnesses. We had 4 witnesses by the defense, no witnesses by the prosecution. And in fact, there was only something like 13 questions asked in totality. on cross-examination of all the witnesses in total, with the last two witnesses not even being cross-examined. So Todd Murphy came out the gate. He was the first witness for the defense, and Todd Murphy is the True Scope owner, and he was testifying to how you track the feeds, like with the stories. He went through his background. So then they talked about the True Scope organizations that they belong to, what their objective was, and the data they use, how they track the topics, the names, the unique phrases that they were using to track all of this. Then how they build a search query, and that they use they'll use AI. They have a balance of validity. They try to balance the validity of something. Then they have AI, and then they have a human person that goes through in case there was errors, like, in this case, it was very extraordinary names. So but he was giving an example, like if it was like Matt Smith. So he wanted to get out the Matt Smiths that weren't really the Matt Smiths. But in this case, they were really just very uncommon names. So that wasn't hard. He went over what the objective in the case, what their objective was. And again, it was to track all of these. They went through, it was to take the market, Latah market, which is part of Nez Perce and Lewiston. That's why I was that's why I can't go there. They used the Moscow Daily News. They did the circulation. They were going over numbers. Then they compared it to everybody has affiliates. So ABC, NBC, but there's always that local affiliate, so that they would consider those. And their target market was anything that was Spokane in that area. Ada County is Boise. So they actually have a different, target, which is Boise. Then they would track in the morning, at noon, at dinner time, and at the nightly 10 p.m. And that's usually your largest. And so that they were seeing what the frequency was for the shows that would go out. They're going to talk about it in the morning. They're going to talk about it at the noon hour. They're going to talk about it at dinner, and they're going to talk about it at 10 o'clock. Then they show the difference about the demographics. Then they showed how they don't do illegal searches. So we will not search if somebody has a private Facebook, if somebody has a private Facebook group, stuff like that, stuff that's illegal to go in. How they're streaming their entertainment channels. Then we got into the Exhibit C at the 35-minute mark of my live stream of that live broadcast. And Exhibit C was the big spreadsheet, and it was a basic spreadsheet. And it showed media examples from Twitter, metadata, city, state, then the hyperlinks, the hashtagging as well. Then he went on to explain that it was a basic spreadsheet, but it showed you these numbers. The next part was the True Scope was constantly monitoring news. So every single day, that's how they were able to do the line graphs. Okay, they were constantly monitoring this. And they started monitoring everything to do with this case February 6, 2023. That's when they were hired. So they were hired as far back as February 6, 2023. Then this guy, Todd Murphy, this expert, was explaining the different pie graphs that we saw. And I think he explained 1, 2, 3 pie graphs. Then he got into the jury eligibility. And so in Ada County, there's way more jury eligible persons there versus Latah County. Then we went into the slides of the volume of the media coverage. And here I'll bring in Hector for this, because it was really, really interesting when you think about it, how small Latah County is, but yet they're making up the most volume of the media coverage, and they're only 2% of the population of Idaho. Latah County makes up 2% of the population, yet in this case, it was producing 36% of the media volume. Okay. Those numbers are astronomical. Page 5 of that basic spreadsheet. It was talking about that 57 to 31% versus Ada versus Moscow. And actually, I'll come back to that. He talked a lot about why this can't go to Nez Perce, why this can't go to Lewiston, because they were in the same market. So hopefully that resonates, and I believe it will resonate with good old Judge, but you can't take this there. Ann Taylor was saying, could you go to Banyan County? Could you go to Canyon County? Yeah, you could, but they don't make up the same demographics as something like Latol that has a big university, whereas Ada has that. On cross-examination, this is one of the guys that was cross-examined, and he had like about 6 questions. One of them was, why didn't you start tracking things during the arrest or in December of 2022? Why did you start tracking things in February? And he's like, well, because that's when we were hired. And for us to go back in time and try to get things, it wouldn't be accurate. Just in case things were deleted, things were taken down, it wouldn't be an accurate. He's like, we can go in back searches, but there's expired links that we're dealing with. And from those expired links, we'd be giving you skewed numbers, which makes perfect sense. You know, how many people, I like how he used the word expired links versus like deleted, or it's just they're expired, they don't work. Then their questions with, again, this Todd Murphy guy in cross-examination was, okay, the numbers between Latol and Ada are so close, wouldn't you say? And he's like, yeah, their numbers are close. Couldn't we have closed hearings? He's like, I couldn't answer that because that's a what if, and I'd have to see what that would mean. And then he goes into saying, well, you're still going to have your news reports, even if it's closed hearing, you're still going to have news correspondents in there, and then they're going to write up their, do their broadcasting, outside the place and from inside if they're tweeting and stuff like that. And you're still going to have the public record. So his combat, which I think was awesome, was his closed hearings, in his opinion, you're still going to have the coverage, because Bill Thompson's argument is that over time, the coverage is going to just go like this, fall off, because time heals all wounds type thing. And it doesn't. What you see in this case is peaks and valleys. And each time you see the peak is when something is going on in the case. And then when you see that, a dipping low is that nothing's being talked about, nothing's being put out in the public record. You can find that around the 1 hour mark of my video. Then they talk about the Memorial Garden. Okay. And something like that made another peak. Okay. Then they talk about the Nielsen rankings. All right. And it was very interesting to hear about where and how that truly works. New York that's the biggest market, and Latol County is in the Spokane market, and they rank number 64 out of 210. And then Boise is number 97 out of 210. And that's a bigger indication of a true gap in why you'd want to have it in Boise versus Latol, because of the type of population. It should never be in front of, Boise. So I thought that was interesting to bring out the Nielsen ratings. Then they took a break from 10:07 a.m. to 10:20 a.m. And then we came back with witness number 2, which was a surprise witness who I think did the best overall. Like, I think she was really, really good. And they actually talk about her in mainstream media a lot here the past 24 hours. The professor from Eastern Washington that took the stand. And it was about, she's a professor. Okay. And it was about social influences. And she's been doing this since the late 90s, really began in 2002 as being when she finished up her master's. But she went through a whole little slide show. And it was all about social influences. It's about the pressures that you would feel, that even if you were on this jury and you thought that you could be fair and impartial, that then there becomes this, okay, if you want to step out and say, okay, I don't think that they proved this, or I don't think that this, and you're going to go against the norms, that you're going to then feel extraordinary pressure, okay, to then be labeled as the person that basically, quote unquote, freed Brian Kober. And that those social influences that you would then be then stepping back out into the world, where if you're a business owner, if you're whatever it is that you are in the community, that you could be blacklisted or be that shunned upon, because everyone's going to know who you are. And they're going to make it known that that's the person that we had like one holdout, or we had two holdouts, or so very interesting. I actually loved her. I loved her because it's so true. Talk about things that you remember if you saw something, okay, what it's going to trigger. So if there's a part that I would recommend to go and watch, I would recommend to go and watch from the 1:30 mark on my live from yesterday. Go to the 1:30 mark and press play there and listen to her social influences. Like it was basically like she was like, we were all students in a lecture class and she was giving a lecture, but it was really, really interesting. And it's so true. It's like I gave an example of this. If a guy and a girl start dating freshman year, the guy is a junior, the girl's a freshman. They break up in 2 months. And the guy goes around saying, oh, she was such a slut. She gave it up to me in, 2.2 seconds. And he spreads this horrible rumor that he banged her and da, da, da. And this girl is then labeled a slut, but really they never even had sex. Really, he broke up with her because she wouldn't give it up. Okay. But the rest of her high school career, her existence there, she's labeled this slut, and nothing is going to overcome that with the social influences. Then when so you want to go date that girl and everyone's like, oh my God, you're going to date the school slut. Okay, now a girl that I really want to date, I'm not going to go date because I don't want to be shunned in the school, but maybe I would talk to them secretly type stuff. That's like the best example I think that there is out there with stuff like that you won't do stuff publicly because of what you're going to deal with. But I think that what she did was awesome, and I would go watch it from 1:33 mark to 1:56 mark, and she explains it all. So it's a 20-minute lecture. It's great. Then we come out with witness number 3, who was Dr. Edelman, who did and conducted the surveys. And what was amazing, oh, by the way, they, on cross-examination, they asked that professor a couple different questions, and I thought she did amazing. She is not one to be testifying as an expert. She's been asked to and stuff like that. But witness 2 and witness 4, they basically stepped out of their comfort zone to do this, and they have all the qualifications to obviously do it. It was just something that they never really elected to do and felt the obligation to do this, and so they did it away from whatever it is that they do professionally. It's not coinciding with their work, but it still is based off of all their education. So. But then we get to Edelman, who conducted the survey, and they had a closed hearing for the slides for the first 10 to 15 minutes. And that's just because they did not want any of us, like we already know all here at this channel, the truth, which is if you go and you listen to the December 30th, 2022 press conference, right after Brian Kober was arrested, and you listen to what Bill Thompson says, and you listen to what everybody literally in that press conference said, not a single one of them said that this man is innocent until proven guilty. In fact, they said things like, you have his name now. Bill Thompson said, you have his name now. Go out there and spread his name. What? I've never heard that said by anybody that's a prosecutor. You have his name now. Go out there and tell everybody his name and see what you can get on him. Wild type shit. So that's what they were talking about in the closed hearing. No doubt about it. Because they were going to be showing that this started from the inside out in terms of why this media was on a complete path of just fucking literally a train on fire, crashing and burning all the way. And it started because the prosecutor and the police lit that train on fire and then pushed it. And then it just went across the country, blowing up everywhere. But that's why they wanted that closed, so that Billy couldn't be exposed again, and the rest of the law enforcement people couldn't be exposed for what they did in that press conference. Then when they came back, you guys can see that on my channel around the 4 hour and 30-minute mark. If you guys want to rewatch that. I went ahead and showed it yesterday. I reminded people of what was being seen behind the closed doors. Then at the 5 hour mark of my video, you guys can go check that out, the 5 hour mark. And it was how the survey was conducted. All right. Then at the 5:07 hour mark, 5 hours, 7 minutes, where to move it to. And the big thing for at the 5 hour and 13-minute mark to the 5 hour and 14-minute mark, that is Adelman's literally speech of saying, listen, it is the personal connections here on why it needs to move. This is not about, everybody would have seen this. Okay. Everybody would have heard about this case, seen it. It's not about the hearing and the seeing. It's about the personal connections. And when we talk about who's related to people that work at the school, who's related to people that are law enforcement, that percentage is like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And when you go to Ada County, you are in the 5 to 6 to 8%. I mean, that's why you move it. And that's why you move it there. Okay. You're still going to have that in Nez Perce and in Lewiston. All right. But you're not going to have that in Ada. You're not going to have this, my dad's best friend is a police officer there. That's what you're going to have in Moscow. You're going to have my dad was a police officer there. My uncle, my grandfather, my mom's best friend, like that type of shit. Okay. So that's the reason it needs to move, is that personal connection, which is to the university, which is to the police and law enforcement. Those two things in Moscow, Idaho are like 60, 70%. Those things in Ada, 5, 7, 8%. That's it right there. That's your check mark to move it, and why. At the 5 hour and 18-minute mark, you can see the validity of the survey. Okay, the grid. He uses a grid, and the grid is awesome. And it's about the prejudicial content and where it stems from. Then he talks about the rumor mill at the 5 hour and 20-minute mark. 5 hour and 22-minute mark, he talks about this 76% number, which is basically you think Brian Koberger is guilty because of X, Y, and Z. And now we're going to reverse it and you're then changing the burden. We're shifting the burden now to the defendant, and the defendant is now going to have to prove that he didn't do this versus the presumption of innocence. You're losing that with 76% of your viewership, which is your potential jurors in Latah County. You've lost. Why you do an open question style, and then why you have your leading. A big portion of that should not be overlooked is the 5 hour and 24-minute mark to 5 hour and 25-minute mark, which is the innocence of the town. Okay. This town, everybody says that this doesn't happen in Latah County. This doesn't happen here. We leave our doors unlocked. We don't lock our cars. Okay. This doesn't happen here. So this person, this outsider just came in and robbed us of our innocence. That is, again, that personal touch there. This is the person that ruined that. Okay. Again, you're not going to have that in Ada. The university being a big employer or employee. And that's not even counting the subcontracts I'm telling you that they would have had there. The number is astronomical. 67% of the prospective jurors who would be involved in this case already believe that he is guilty. Okay, 67% of the prospective jurors who reside and know this case think he's guilty in Latah County. 67%. And again, that's that whole shifting. You're right there. You've just now shifted the burden to the defendant. We're in Ada County. That's down like some 20%. Then he talks about a stealth juror. They talk about Bill's argument, which is those that did not take the survey, basically saying that the way that we conducted this is that we called people back 4 times, and it wasn't like we just went through 20,000 names, called them all once. No, we did everybody in blocks. So it was very interesting to hear how this was truly conducted, how well it was conducted. So much so that the next person that testified, by the way, he was never cross-examined. Okay. He doesn't get cross-examined. Then our girl, Dr. Dare, but it's spelled Dahir. I believe she's an Indian woman. She's fucking cool as shit. I'm telling you, if you want to watch, go to the 6 hour and 29 minute mark of my video and watch her 15 minutes to 20 minutes. Blows it out of the water. Literally blows it out of the water. So much so that the reason that she went out and got her is to validate what she does for a living. She basically she runs and sets up surveys all over, and they have to go through, like, she's there to validate and to make sure that you are upholding the standards. Okay. So the University of Nevada, survey stats, independence. She did all of everything that she was there to do yesterday. It was independent of the work that she does, but it is about what she does. She sets up the guidelines for these attitude surveys, which is exactly what they had. She's a trial consultant. Why do people do surveys? And it's all about decision making. You do surveys for decision makings. She was so very, very impressive. She talked about the behavioral risks. They do surveys for behavioral risk, drugs, sex, health, you name it. We do it. And here's my declaration. I reviewed his work. All right. And it is her opinion. She opined that this is 100% one of the most valid surveys that, she's seen, and she decided to come out and speak on it. She reviewed his work, and that if you go to the end at 6 hour and 45 minute mark of my video, she gives you the 6 main things that you look at to validate a survey. And he across the board did it all. So Ann Taylor not only had a survey conducted, this is what's amazing, had it done the right way, but then went out and got one of the world's best to come and validate this validated survey. And guess what? Both of those people, neither one of them, Edelman was not cross-examined, nor was Dr. Dare. When they rested, then the prosecution stood up and said, we have no witnesses. We're going to go right into the just oral arguments. Can't even believe it. You know what? The one thing that they could have asked is, if they would have asked Edelman one question, it would have been on how they set it up. That would have been the only thing you could have ever asked, is the methodology. But he didn't. He had a chance to blow up possibly how these people were trained to do these. But because she said she had no reason not to believe that they weren't trained properly, but they never asked that on cross-examination, which then blew up the chance for them. Once they didn't ask that on cross, to ask her that, she wasn't there for that, their training. But she said, Ann Taylor in her closing said that the courts can presume in Latah County that there is prejudices here. And that's part of in case law. And right there, you have to answer that question first. Is can Brian Kober get a fair trial in Latah County? Don't think about where you're moving it. Answer that question first. And when you ask that question to yourself first, the answer is yes, or the answer is no. He can't get a fair trial in Idaho County. Then you can move on after that. Then you can move on to, okay, where to move it to. But it starts with that first question, which is, can Brian Kober get a fair trial? And with all the information that we just provided you here with today, even without this information, Judge, you know that Brian Kober can't get a fair trial. So ask that question first, and then we'll deal with the where to move it to. The reason that she answered was like, the reason we say Boise is because it is demographically similar to Moscow, with it having the university. Ann Taylor kind of like hit home on some heartfelt moments there during her argument when she said, you know, everybody's connected to this case in Moscow in some type of way. People know everybody, right? But then she went on to say that there has not been one positive piece, not one positive piece written by any media outlet in this case. Nobody has come out and said how Brian Kober has the type of grades that he's gotten and commended him on the grades that he's gotten. Okay. Nobody has said how he is loved by his parents. Nobody has said how he has a dog that he loves and he helped train. Nobody talks about all the stuff that is being said and reported about his character. It's all untrue. And nobody has said anything about any of this to have a single, you cannot find a single positive piece out there on Brian Kober. Not a single positive piece. And when she said that, she's right. You can't find anything out there that doesn't say that this man isn't a monster. And that's shame on mainstream media. Shame on them. But you can find that between the 6 hour and 57 minute mark and the 7:02 minute mark of my video. And she says, what do we do? Well, what does Idaho do here in this type of situation? We believe that there is hope, and hope to get a fair trial that comes from moving this venue. That's what we have. We have hope. So, but that's only attainable if you move this venue. And that's how you have hope to get a fair trial for Brian Kober. The juror pressures are going to be astronomical here in Idaho County. And if the things like they're going to tear down the courthouse, the mob mentality, if that doesn't persuade you enough, then you can just go off of all the other things that you see every day. And you had to stop this proceeding that was public for us to have 10 to 15 minutes that wasn't public for a reason. And at the end of the day, Your Honor, Brian Kober has a constitutional right. We have a constitutional right to a fair and impartial trial. And by not moving this, you'll be, violating that. And she's right. And then the state argued, and you can find that the 7 hour and 8 minute mark of the video. And to even talk about financial stuff was a joke. But I felt that they couldn't go out and find any experts that wanted to combat this. That should tell you a lot. Okay. They had not one witness. The state did not provide one witness to say contrary to anything that they were saying. I think the defense prepared their asses off for this. And it's amazing if you guys go out there and listen. Mainstream media right now is backing the fact that this should move. Lawyers are out there on mainstream media channels saying that this should move. And if at the very least of your reasons to move it is because to play it safe, so this does not go through an appeal and that we do not do this twice, then that should be alone your last reasoning to move it. And people believe that Judge is going to move this. He did say at the end, this is going to be the hardest decision of his career. It should be the hardest decision of his career because have you ever faced anything like this? So with that said, I think Judge is not feeling the pressure. So it's nice to see that mainstream media is allowing people that have the opinion that this should move on their panels, and people can hear that, because I have not went and watched a video yet that I've seen people saying that this needs to stay in Moscow. And I think it's because you would look like a complete fool. And so I don't think anybody's gonna like let themselves look like a complete fool. This comes down to the law. This comes down to our rights, and our rights is this moves. As sad as that may be for the parents and the victims' families, that may suck, and I feel for them with that. But I also know that 3 months of your life to go and get an Airbnb and be in Boise, if that's what you want to do, I bet you there'd be a lot of people out there that'd be willing to donate their Airbnbs. You know, this is happening during the summer. So it would be, you know, less of an inconvenience to do that for like the summer. But I've seen a lot of people with the families, they're watching on Zoom, they're watching on streams. And so maybe it's only like here a week, there a week, but I know that the community would rally around making sure that the families could get there if they couldn't afford it or needed it. I know that we would do anything that we could to help with that. So, but that's my recap, and I got it in within an hour and talked about the craziness in the beginning with this latest part. So I just want to say that I thank you guys for joining in yesterday. It was a very long day over here. I had Sandra Birchmore for 2 hours, and then I sat through that whole hearing. And so I would love to hear your opinions about how you think everything went down. Again, give me some time. I'm going to work on clipping the different parts that I think are good, and from that hearing, so you can hear it from the mouths of those witnesses. And I will put out my notes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 pages worth of notes. So there'll be 3 posts back to back to back to back to back. If you are a member of the channel, you will get the notes with the timestamps to go straight to where you can find that in the videos. So again, make yourself known, thumbs it up, share this video. I think that there's a problem with the parents going out and interviewing people, and that needs to stop immediately. So again, happy birthday to anybody's birthday that's out there. I see some birthday love. Sorry, I can't always look at chat, or my videos would take 10 hours. All right, now let me just swallow here for a second. Gulp. Oh, my throat. Please send to Anne. We've already taken care of all of that. I was blown away by this piece. I think this needs to come down. I had to preserve it though, because that's not cool. I mean, this is the definition right here. If you guys are just joining us here at Truth and Transparency, this is the part. Yesterday, there was an interview that took place after the hearing, and I just couldn't believe. Here it is, what was said.
What do you think, Stephen?
Of course, we'd rather it stay in the top.
Yeah.
Just out of convenience sake, and out of the fact that this is where it happened, this is where it deserves to be tried.
It would be a big inconvenience for you all too. I mean,
Yeah, Idaho's a large state. You're talking another 12 hours of travel. We wouldn't be able to go home at the same day. Now you're staying overnight. And like you said, this is the community that was, this person, they victimized them, and the justice deserves to be felt local, and they have a hand in it. And that's what we believe in.
and you know this area well. You've been in court today too, listening to the defense's arguments. Do you think they could find a fair jury here?
We know they can, and we've actually asked and done interviews ourselves, and they have to find 12 people plus some people on the side,
We've done interviews ourselves. Wait, what is going on here? They're interviewing Latah County residents that are potential jurors. I can't believe that they just submitted this on national television.
Some substitutes, but yeah, they can find 12 people that have made their mind up.
That's not that hard. Yeah. I just don't. Yeah, I don't see that being that hard at all.
They have one expert that says you can call the jury and they can still remain, not contaminated, not biased. And then you got another expert that says once they hear something, they never can get it out of their head. So, you can weed those people out just through the jury selection and say, hey, if you read that vigil, let us know. And you can weed these people out. And I don't even think it's fair, but, for the sake of the case, you can get those people and remove them. Let's just say that they are some kind of bias there, but you remove those and then you just move on.
There's definitely people here, surprisingly, in this county, in this town, that I would think don't know much about it. I mean, I believe that there are some people,
Tons.
There's a lot of people that don't watch TV. They don't come into town a lot. They have farms. They kind of stick to their own. So I see it being pretty easy for them. They just got to find them.
Do you feel like your voices are being heard in terms of the prosecution and them knowing that, you would prefer it to stay?
We have made it very clear to the prosecution how important it is to us. And they have reiterated it to us that they are passing that information on to the judge and that the judge does consider that.
Yeah, and they've
But
shared stuff
how much it weighs, we don't know.
They've shared stuff like the reason that he's not in an orange suit and in shackles is to keep this local media unbiased. They've done everything that they can possibly do to treat him as if, I call it a white collar crime.
Yeah.
But, this person's killed 4 people, he should be shackled. But there was a strategy for that, and that's to keep it here and to keep people from being, prejudging. And I think that they've done a good job. And the media also helps, people understand.
My girl Joyce,
a lot of people are upset, though, when they see that he's in a suit.
Yes.
It bothers people.
For sure,
It does.
for sure.
A lot.
I mean, you've
We
got
get
lawyers
all the
that
time.
have been lawyers and own their own the case.
He is shackled. We have been told he is shackled at the knees. But yeah, his suit covers it.
Mhm.
And he's always nice and clean shaven. And that's apparently part of the, agreement to help in the long run, which we're here now at the long run of changing the venue. And there's also the gag order, that's all to keep everything on lock. And
Otherwise, it was pointless.
Yeah.
It was completely pointless.
yeah.
I remember seeing you all in court that first time, and what that was like, and I mean, does it feel any different now? It's just such a small courtroom, and you're so close to him.
So close to him. I hate it. I didn't sleep last night. I feel like so much shock has worn off at this point that it is even more real. I feel like those early on court cases, it was just easy breezy. And now I'm like, it just is really hard for me mentally. And because I just feel like I'm becoming more and more mental aware, like by the day, like I'm coming out of this, haze of in reality, it's just becoming more and more real every court date that we go to, and time goes on. And it's hard. It gets harder for me.
Is it hard, like not to look at him, or do you try to just listen to what they're saying? Or?
I look at him. I especially when he walks in, I'll look right at him. I'm just dying for him to look over, make eye contact.
Yeah, that's where the suit and being treated like a preferential prisoner, it gets you, because this person's done the most horrendous thing to your daughter, and they're getting treated better than a normal criminal would be, and it doesn't make a lot of sense for you, and you put up with the punishment because you're hoping that it'll justify the means, and we'll keep it here. But if they don't keep it here, then put them back in the orange seat and treat them like a normal criminal.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com.
And if that's not why you move it, that's actually why you move it. Put him back. They're basically saying the only reason he is in a suit and tie, you guys, is to keep the case in freaking Moscow, Idaho. I think somebody needs to call Steve Gonsalves up and say, Steve, I hate to inform you, but that's not why he's in a suit and tie. But whoever told you that, it's probably those same people that told you a lot of other things back in the beginning of this case. Again, wow. I had to put it out here on this channel because you think anybody's going to talk about this? This was the same reason that they went crazy about the phone surveys. People were contacting the potential juror pool, right? Well, Steve Gonsalves just comes out, and his wife, Christy, come out, and their son, and they just say, this is what we've done. We've interviewed people. We've interviewed people ourselves, and we know that he can get a fair trial here. Well, now we need, who are these people that you interview? Because we're going to need the names and phone numbers. Because it's the same thing that got asked about with the survey. You had to cough up all these phone numbers that y'all called. That's the raw data that they needed to turn over. This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. In my opinion, this is unbelievable. With that said, guys, we'll see you on the flip side. Spread this far and wide and make sure that the real truth gets out there. Add to the state.
For this investigation.
Why you believe they are targeted killings, and do you know who, if any, of the victims were the actual targets of the killings?
We understand the public's frustration about not being provided a lot of information. We are working to the best of our ability to actually provide as much as possible. We intend to come out and solicit information.